All right, so we're diving deep again today, and this time we're going to be looking at spiritual awakening and liberation through the teachings of Kabir,
Okay.
as interpreted by OSHO. We're going to be using a discourse where OSHO unpacks one of Kabir's poems.
Sounds good.
Get ready for some pretty potent metaphors. We're talking about ignorance, gurus, and what it really means to experience reality. So pretty deep stuff.
Yeah, it's amazing how Osho can take a poem and then use that as like a jumping off point to discuss these universal human experiences.
Right.
Like the idea of mistaking illusion for reality.
Yeah.
And he uses a story in this.
Oh, he loves a good story, Osho.
Yeah.
And this one is really something. He describes these prisoners who've been chained in this dark dungeon since birth.
Right.
They've never seen anything else.
Well,
And so they just assume that the shadows on the wall, that's reality.
right.
And it just makes me wonder, when we read this, like, what are our shadows? What are the shadows that we're mistaking for reality in our own lives?
Right. And Kabir actually says something very similar in the poem. He says, "The whole world is wise, only I'm a fool."
Oh, wow.
It's kind of like he's saying,
It's like he's escaped.
yeah,
He's the one who got out, and he's trying to tell everyone else, hey, you guys are looking at shadows. Like,
Yeah.
there's a whole other thing out here. Can you imagine trying to explain that? Trying to explain, like, the sun or something to someone who's never even seen the light?
absolutely. And, both Kabir and Osho, they both talk about this in their teachings, this idea of forgetfulness,
Forgetfulness.
forgetting our true nature,
Mm.
becoming so attached to our limited perceptions that anything that challenges that
Yeah.
is immediately rejected.
Right. And so how do we break free from that?
Right.
Kabir says, when I was forgetful, O brother, my true guru showed me the way.
Okay.
But it makes me wonder, like, is it really about finding a person? Or is he talking about, the mirror? Like, is there something more to that?
Yeah, and Osho talks about this too. He talks about needing a jugat, which is like a device.
The device.
Yeah, like a device to awaken us from this slumber of ignorance.
Oh, okay.
And so it might not always be a person. It could be, maybe a book or a life-altering experience.
Right, right.
Even, great suffering, anything that can sort of shake us out of complacency.
And that's where, Kabir's rejection of external rituals gets really interesting. He talks about giving up all these rituals, the actions, and even going on pilgrimages. It's not that these things are bad in and of themselves.
Right.
But he's saying, hey, like, if you're not doing the inner work, if there's no inner transformation, then what are you really doing?
Yeah.
You know?
And Osho really picks up on this.
Right.
The danger of clinging to dogma and those external practices without any genuine inner work.
Right. You can go through the motions, but are you really awake? For both of them, for Kabir and Osho, it's this inner process, this journey back to the self.
Yeah.
But this idea of the self can be a bit, it can be a bit tricky, can it?
Absolutely.
Because, sometimes you can fall into this, like, spiritual ego trap where you think, oh, well, I've transcended the human experience now. I'm beyond all that.
Right.
And yet Kabir places such an emphasis on compassion.
Yeah.
He even calls it his religion. He says, keeping compassion as my religion. He says, I see the world immersed in sadness. I gave up all pride and arrogance.
And what's really interesting here is like Kabir's compassion is not just like this, this feel-good sentimentality.
Right.
It's something that arises from this very deep, like, joy.
Okay.
From experiencing true joy and connection, which then reveals the depth of suffering all around us.
So you're saying, like, when you're truly joyful,
Yeah.
it makes you more sensitive to the suffering of others. And it dissolves the ego. Like, you don't need to be self-important anymore.
Right.
And then it leads to this more humble and compassionate way of being.
Yeah, it really is this beautiful kind of paradox. And this is where Osho's interpretation of the prisoner allegory gets really, really insightful.
Oh, okay.
If we connect it back to how organized religions often oppose like living gurus, it makes you wonder if true awakening is seen as a threat to the status quo.
Oh, interesting. Because it encourages people to think for themselves.
Yeah.
And to challenge, the established order.
Absolutely.
But couldn't you also apply that on an individual level? Like, aren't we sometimes resisting change even within ourselves?
Totally. And this is where this idea of a living guru gets really interesting. It's not necessarily about finding a person,
Hmm.
but it's anything that helps us see ourselves more clearly.
Yeah.
Challenges those limited perceptions.
Right.
And encourages us to, to step into our full potential.
So it could be anything that acts as a mirror then, reflecting back our true selves.
Exactly, yeah.
So even our own experiences, if we just allow ourselves to be present.
Yeah, if we allow ourselves to be open.
You're really open to them.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And to illustrate this, OSHO actually shares a really powerful anecdote about the Buddha.
Oh, okay.
About his own journey towards enlightenment.
Okay.
He talks about how the Buddha struggled with this extreme asceticism.
Right, right.
And this eventual realization that true awakening actually comes from within, but of how he arrives at that realization that is so compelling.
Okay, so initially he's starving himself, right?
Yeah.
He's denying his body, like pushing himself to these extremes.
To the very limit, yeah.
But it's not working.
It's not. And, he's on the verge of death when this village woman, her name was Sujata,
Okay.
she sees him.
Yeah.
And offers him a bowl of milk.
Right, right.
This very simple act of nourishment. And it becomes this real turning point.
Because he's finally surrendering, right? He's accepting, like he needs nourishment.
Yeah.
Instead of just punishing himself.
Exactly.
I've always loved that story. But I'm curious, like what does OSHO do with that?
Well, OSHO highlights the significance of that offering.
Okay.
It's a symbol of letting go of those rigid practices and surrendering to the present moment. This is the Jugat. This is the device that shifts his entire perspective.
So instead of external practices, it's about cultivating internal awareness.
Yeah.
What he called pure awareness.
Exactly. This state of being that's devoid of thoughts and anxieties. And it's this shift, from the external to the internal that Osho really wants us to grasp.
Okay, so if we kind of circle back to Kabir's poetry, with this emphasis on the true guru, are we talking about like finding a person who can lead us to this pure awareness? Or is there something more to it?
Well, that's the question we're going to delve into. Yeah. Because if a true guru is, a mirror reflecting our true selves, where might we find such a mirror in our own lives?
So it feels like we're at this real crossroads. We've been talking about this living guru as a mirror, reflecting our true selves back to us, and this possibility that that compassion itself might be that mirror. But how do we actually find that mirror, that Jugat in our own lives?
Kabir says, "When I was forgetful, O brother, my true guru showed me the way." And that line, it always strikes me because it implies that the guru, the mirror, it appears when we're ready, when we're truly yearning for something more.
So instead of seeking it out, we cultivate the longing, the thirst for truth. It makes me think about like that prisoner who escapes the dungeon. He doesn't just like stumble out, At some point he must become so desperate for something more that he found a way to break free.
Yeah, and that desperation, that yearning, it can manifest in so many different ways.
Right.
It could be a deep dissatisfaction with life.
Yeah.
A sense of emptiness, even, this feeling that there must be more to existence than what we're currently experiencing. It's like we've been living in this world of shadows, and then suddenly we catch a glimpse of light.
And that glimpse, that's the Jugat. It could be anything then.
It could be, yeah.
A book, a teacher, a sudden shift in perspective.
Exactly. And it often comes in the most unexpected ways.
Right.
Think about the Buddha and the milk offering.
Right.
That simple act of kindness, of nourishment, was the catalyst for his awakening. He had been punishing his body, denying himself those basic needs. And it wasn't until he surrendered to that moment of care that his perspective shifted.
So it's not always about, these grand gestures or mystical experiences. Sometimes the Jugat is hidden in like the everyday, the mundane, if we're just open to seeing it.
And that's where the challenge lies, isn't it?
Yeah.
Are we willing to be disrupted? To have those comfortable routines and assumptions challenged.
We keep coming back to this idea of resistance, right? Like we resist the escaped prisoner's truth. And even, on a personal level, we resist change within ourselves.
Right.
And I wonder if that resistance is partly because true awakening, as you said earlier, can feel like a death.
Right.
a death of the ego, of our old ways of seeing the world.
Absolutely. And that can be terrifying.
Yeah.
You know, we cling to what's familiar.
Yeah.
Even if it's causing us suffering.
Mm-hmm.
But there's something else at play here too. Remember, Kabir says, "Keeping compassion is my religion. I see the world immersed in sadness."
Yeah.
That line, it always gets me because it highlights this profound connection between compassion and this kind of sadness, like a grief for the suffering of the world.
It's like by truly opening our hearts to the suffering of others, we're also opening ourselves up to this deeper level of awareness, like a sensitivity to the fragility and the preciousness of life.
Yeah, and what's fascinating is that this perspective, you know, it really aligns with the core teachings of so many mystical traditions. This idea that the truth, the divine, it's not separate from us,
right?
But it's within us, and that by cultivating these qualities like compassion,
right,
we're not just becoming better people or something.
Right.
We're tapping into this deeper dimension, of our own being.
So if we accept this idea of internal transformation, how do we actually do it? What are the tools that Kabir might have used to cultivate that inner stillness?
Well, practices like meditation come to mind, but not in the sense of, these rigid rituals that Kabir rejected.
Right.
Meditation in this context is about, cultivating that inner space, that awareness that allows us to see beyond the surface level of things.
Okay.
It's about creating the conditions for that pure awareness that OSHO talks about.
Yeah.
This state of being devoid of thoughts and anxieties.
But it's not about forcing ourselves to become empty, right? It's more about creating the space for those deeper truths to emerge.
Exactly. And this is where Kabir's emphasis on detachment comes into play. He says, "Keeping compassion as my religion, I see the world immersed in sadness. I gave up all pride and arrogance." And this detachment, it's not about isolating ourselves from the world or becoming indifferent to suffering or anything.
Right.
It's about recognizing the impermanence of things, the ever-changing nature of reality.
So it's more about detaching from the ego's clinging.
Yeah.
From the illusion of permanence and control.
And paradoxically, it's through that detachment that we can experience this deeper, more authentic connection to ourselves and the world around us.
It's like we're loosening our grip, allowing ourselves to be moved by life rather than constantly trying to control it.
Right.
Which makes me think of those prisoners again, the one who escapes. He has to let go of everything he thought he knew, like his entire understanding of reality in order to step into the unknown.
Yeah.
And I wonder if that willingness to embrace the unknown is key to finding this mirror we've been talking about.
You're hitting on something really important here.
Yeah.
That willingness to embrace the unknown, to question our assumptions and be open to new perspectives. It's essential on this path of awakening, because of the truth, as Kabir and Osho suggest, it's not something we find out there.
Right.
It's something we remember, something we uncover within ourselves.
And perhaps that's where the real challenge and the real beauty of this journey lies.
Absolutely.
It's not about, achieving some final state of enlightenment.
Right.
But it's about the ongoing process of self-discovery, of shedding layers of conditioning and expanding our capacity for love and compassion.
It's a journey of remembering who we truly are.
Yeah.
And sometimes all it takes is a single glimpse of light to remind us that we've been living in a dungeon all along.
We've been kind of going around and around this idea of a living guru as a mirror.
Right.
This jugat that can kind of spark our awakening if it's not necessarily a person, and it can show up in these really unexpected ways. Where do we even begin to look for it?
Maybe the better question is are we even looking? Or are we so caught up in our routines and distractions that we miss those those glimpses of light, those whispers of truth that are always kind of present.
It's like we're so focused on searching for something like out there that we forget to just like turn our attention inward. Right. We forget that the greatest mystery, like the most profound teacher, might be found within our own hearts.
And Kabir and OSHO, they both point to this, again and again.
Yeah.
It's not about accumulating knowledge or seeking external validation or anything like that. It's about cultivating that inner awareness, that space, where we can connect with something larger than ourselves.
But that inner space can feel so elusive. Like our minds are constantly chattering, our lives are full of demands, distractions.
Right.
How do we even begin to like quiet the noise and create that space for pure awareness?
Well, think back to Kabir's line, "When I was forgetful, O brother, my true guru showed me the way." Maybe the Jugat appears precisely when we're at our most lost. When we're so desperate for something more that we're finally willing to surrender control.
So it's not about like forcing ourselves to be still or empty.
No.
But it's about like creating the conditions, the fertile ground for that inner transformation to occur.
Exactly. And that might look different for each person. It could be, through practice like meditation or spending time in nature.
Right.
Or maybe it's through acts of service and compassion, allowing ourselves to be touched by the suffering and joy of others.
We talked about compassion as a kind of mirror earlier, a way of seeing ourselves more clearly by connecting with that shared human experience.
Right.
But I also wonder if compassion itself can be a jugat. Like a device that disrupts our ego's grip and opens us to a deeper reality.
What's so beautiful about compassion is that it dissolves that illusion of separateness. It reminds us that we're all interconnected.
Right.
That our individual joys and sorrows, they're all kind of woven into this tapestry of life.
Yeah.
And when we allow ourselves to be touched by that truth, it can be profoundly transformative.
It makes me think about those prisoners again. The one who escapes. He might feel isolated at first.
Right.
Like Kabir saying, "The whole world is wise, only I am a fool."
Yeah.
But he also carries that spark of truth, that new understanding of reality. And even if others reject him, that spark has the potential to kind of ignite something within them.
That's the power of awakening, isn't it?
Yeah.
It doesn't just, transform the individual. It has this ripple effect.
Yeah.
It inspires others to question their own perceptions and seek their own truths.
So if we want to find that mirror, that jugat that can spark our own awakening, maybe we need to start by cultivating that sense of longing, that willingness to embrace the unknown, and perhaps most importantly, to cultivate compassion, not just as a feeling, but as a way of being in the world.
Because ultimately, the journey of awakening, it's not about seeking something outside ourselves. It's about remembering who we truly are.
Yeah.
It's about shedding those layers of conditioning and expanding our capacity for love, wisdom, and connection.
Yeah.
It's about becoming more fully human, more fully alive.
It's been quite a journey, exploring these ideas with you.
It has.
It feels like we've peeled back some layers of meaning, uncovering these hidden depths in Kabir's poetry and Osho's interpretation.
Absolutely.
And as we wrap up this deep dive, I'm left with this sense of possibility and a renewed commitment, I think, to cultivating those qualities of awareness and compassion and courage that can guide us on our own unique paths of awakening.
And as you navigate that path, remember, you're not alone.
Yeah.
There's a whole universe within you waiting to be explored.
Right.
And perhaps, as Kabir suggests, the greatest teacher, the truest mirror is the one that you find reflecting back at you to the depths of your own heart.